Hola y buenos días. Yo soy el señor Morris, el maestro de español. ¿Cómo están ustedes? Today, we're going to review the things that we started to talk about in our last lesson, and then look at the cardinal and intermediate directions in Spanish. But let's get started, as we always do, with our greeting song. But before we start our greeting song, I wanted to go over the words with you. You know, we start off by saying, hola, buenos días. That's, of course, hello, good morning. And then I ask, ¿Cómo están ustedes? How are all of you? And then, ¿Cómo se sienten? Well, that means, how do you feel? How do all of you feel? And I got that from this T-shirt that I got. And as you can see, this T-shirt, it says, ¿Cómo te sientes hoy? Now, remember our last lesson we talked about hoy means today. ¿Cómo te sientes? How do you feel today? And this is for one person, you feel. When we ask ¿Cómo se sienten? That I'm asking, how do all of you feel? And here you can pick your mood from all of these on the T-shirt. You might have seen a T-shirt like this in English to describe how you're feeling today. And then I answer by saying, Yo me siento bien. I feel good. Anyway, that's what we're singing, and that's where that line came from a T-shirt. Let's go ahead and sing the opening song now that we know all the words. Canten conmigo. Hola, buenos días. ¿Cómo están ustedes? ¿Cómo se sienten? Yo me siento bien. Muy bien cantado. Now, as I said, we'll start today's lesson with a review of the answers that we talked about last time to this question, ¿Dónde vives? I'll go over the answers with you quickly, and then we'll do the question and answer like we did last time. The first one that we talked about was this. If someone asked you, ¿Dónde vives? And you said, Vivo en el campo. That's this area here. El campo is out on the countryside, right? And you should have these in your notes. If you don't, go ahead and add them to your notes today. You could say, Vivo en un pueblo. Vivo en un pueblo. And a pueblo has some buildings. The people live closer together than they do out in el campo. But it doesn't have a lot of real tall buildings, right? This is Vivo en un pueblo. You could say, Vivo en una ciudad. Repitan todos. Vivo en una ciudad. All right. Or if you wanted to tell someone about the different type of buildings that you live in, you might say, Vivo en una casa. Repitan. Vivo en una casa. That's right. If you live in one of these single-family residence, a house, right, una casa. Or you might say, Vivo en un apartamento. Un apartamento. Now this one's pretty easy because it's a cognate, apartment. And you can see that more than one family lives in this building. It's an apartment building. Yeah. Well, now if I ask you, ¿Dónde vives? And you lived in this place, what would you say? You can use your notes if you need to. Vivo en un pueblo. Un pueblo. Yeah. Go ahead and say these out loud. It'll help you with your pronunciation now. If you lived in this building and someone asked you, ¿Dónde vives? How would you answer them? Go ahead and say the whole answer out loud. Vivo en un apartamento. Vivo en un apartamento. Right. What if you lived here and someone asked you, ¿Dónde vives? How would you answer them? How would you respond? You'd say, Vivo en una casa. Vivo en una casa. What if you lived in this place? A lot of tall buildings, a lot of apartamentos. Yeah, if you lived here and someone asked you, ¿Dónde vives? How would you answer? Go ahead and say the whole answer right now. Did you say, vivo en una ciudad? Vivo en una ciudad. Well, what if you lived here and someone said, ¿Dónde vives? How would you answer them? Go ahead and say the whole answer now. Okay. Did you say, vivo en el campo? Vivo en el campo. Muy bien. Right now I'd like for everyone to review that again with this video. Ahora, presten atención y repitan todos. ¿Dónde vives?
Vivo en un pueblo. ¿Dónde vives?
Vivo en una ciudad.
¿Dónde vives?
Vivo en el campo.
¿Dónde vives? Vivo en un apartamento. ¿Dónde vives?
Vivo en una casa. Muy bien. Well, you guys should be getting pretty familiar with that stuff right by now. Today, we're going to go over the cardinal and intermediate directions in Spanish. Those are what we use to navigate around a map or around the globe or to give directions and things. Okay? Does anyone know what the cardinal directions are in English? Well, if you said no, it's probably just because you don't recognize the term cardinal directions. Let's go ahead and look at them in English first so that you'll know what we're talking about. Here's a compass rose. And if we look at a compass rose, generally when they point up, they talk about the direction north. Okay? Does it seem familiar now? I bet you all know it. So if north is up, the opposite of that, if we go down, is south. Okay? So north and south. Well, if we head in this direction over here, this one is called east. Okay? You know that? Back east and all of that. Maybe you have an east and west in the town where you live. And back over here is the west. Okay. So those are the cardinal directions in English. Now, in Spanish, they also navigate on maps and move around and give directions to each other, and they use the cardinal directions. They're called los puntos cardinales, and you can hear that they're about the same thing. And a lot of the directions are very much the same too. It makes them really easy to recognize. For example, when we talked about going up in English and we said that was north, in Spanish we call that norte. Repitan todos. Norte. And you can see that that's spelled almost exactly the same, and that makes it pretty easy to recognize when you see the two of them next to each other. So we talked about norte if you're going up, and if you go the opposite direction, south, we call that sur. Repitan todos. Sur. Now you can see that this word looks pretty different from the word south, but it starts with the same letter. Sur, south. So that should make it at least recognizable. If you see sur and south next to each other, you should be able to recognize that they are the same thing. Okay, so we have norte, sur. Now when we talked about it in English, we called this direction east. In Spanish, it's called este. Repitan todos. Este. Okay, and este is east. You can see it looks very much like the word east from English, doesn't it? So that one should be easy to recognize too. So now we've had norte, sur, este, and when we talked about, in English we called it west, in Spanish we called it oeste. Go ahead, repitan todos. Oeste. Okay, now you hear that in English we call it west and starts with a W. Well, in Spanish it starts with an O. But if you say the word, your mouth forms that W formation. Say oeste, oeste. Okay, and that's just a combination of the O and the E, oe, oeste. That makes you form that. Okay, so these are the cardinal directions in Spanish: norte, sur, este y oeste. But what if we want to talk about something that's not exactly one or the other, but kind of in between them? It's like something's kind of norte or kind of este, but it's not really one or the other. We use something called intermediate points. Remember I told you cardinal and intermediate? Intermediate means in between. Okay? Well, say for example, well, do you know them in English? Let's look at them in English first. If we are talking between north and east, we call that direction northeast. Pretty easy, huh? You just do a combination of the two directions that you're talking about. So if we're looking in between south and east, we would call that direction southeast. Okay? I bet you guys can figure out this next one. If we're talking about a direction that's in between south and west, we call that direction southwest. And finally, if we're talking about something that's in between the north and the west, we call that northwest. Now, in Spanish, just like we had los puntos cardinales, for the intermediate points, we have los puntos intermedios, in between. Okay? And the system is a lot like the system in English. We just kind of combine the directions that we're talking about. So if we're looking at something in between norte and este, we call it noreste. Now you see we don't say the complete word norte este. We just use the first three letters, noreste. So we use the first three letters. If we're looking at something that's in between sur and este, we combine those and just call it sureste. Okay? And you can see it has three letters at the front, just like noreste, sureste. That makes it pretty easy. Well, I bet you guys have pretty much gotten to the point where you can figure out the system. So if we're looking at something in between sur and oeste, what do you think we're going to call it? Do you think we're going to call it suroeste? Suroeste. That makes it pretty easy, huh? Yeah. And if we're looking at something that's in between norte and oeste, now remember that we didn't use the whole word when we talked about it. We didn't use norte completely. So what do you think this is going to be called? How about noroeste? Noroeste. You see, the system's pretty easy. Well, those are the directions, los puntos cardinales y los puntos intermedios in Spanish. But how would they lay out on a world map? Well, here we have a map of the world. Aquí está América del Norte, North America, América del Sur, Antártida, Africa, Europa. Over here we have Asia, and then right down here, Australia. Here's the world, and this is how it's laid out. Now, where do you think that we're going to put the first cardinal direction? Norte. Well, I kind of gave you a hint because up here is Norte America, so up here we have norte. And once you've found one direction, you can figure out all of them, because opposite of norte we have sur, right? Okay, so if you know norte and sur, then you can figure out that in this direction we're going to have este, right, the east, and the west that we have over here is going to be oeste. So they lay out the same way. And here are all of our cardinal directions on the world map. And you can figure out where the intermediate directions go. Okay, that's how it lays out. Now, while I get my activity sheet ready, I'd like for all of you to go ahead and review los puntos cardinales e intermedios again with this video. Pongan atención y repitan todos. Los puntos cardinales e intermedios. Norte, sur, este, oeste, noreste, sureste, suroeste, noroeste. Muy bien. Ahora, saquen la hoja de actividades llamada los puntos cardinales e intermedios. Okay. Go ahead and write your name up at the top. Roberto. Now I want to show you something here. This isn't a misprint. We usually say the word E to mean and, but if it comes before this sound of E, you change it to E. Los puntos cardinales e intermedios. So that's why that's there. That's not a misprint. Okay, well this is pretty easy. Write the cardinal and intermediate directions in their proper places on the map. Now, I've got them down here on the key for you, and I'd like you to notice that in Spanish we capitalize the cardinal and intermediate directions. I'm going to give you a start. Right up here, the first one is going to be norte. Okay. And from there you should be able to figure out the rest of these directions and apply them from the key. Now down here at the bottom, we've got another busca palabra, or word search. Okay? Find and circle the directions in the puzzle. Here we go. Let's see, I'm going to get in close here. Do you see any of them yet? Let me see. I think I see one. Here's one down here. Este. Okay, so you should find all 8 of the puntos cardinales e intermedios right in here. Okay. Oh, hey, I'm going to back up. Look at, rather than just do that, I think I found the word oeste. Hey. All right. Well, you guys can go ahead and do that whenever your teacher gives you a chance. If you need to work together with your classmates, or if your teacher needs to give you some help, that's fine. I mean, this is for learning. It's not a competition. I want you guys to understand and hopefully enjoy it. Maybe working with somebody else will help you enjoy it. Today, we reviewed our answers to the question, ¿Dónde vives? And we looked at the cardinal and intermediate directions in Spanish. And that was pretty easy because it was so much like the English terms. Now, next class, we'll start to look at some other answers to the question, ¿Dónde vives? Pero ahora es hora de despedirnos. It's time for our goodbye song. Today, let's go ahead and sing that song that I like so much, called Cielito Lindo. And that's the one that says, ay, 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 ay. And I'd like you guys to sing with me, canten conmigo. De la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo, vienen bajando un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de contrabando. Everybody sing. Ay, 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 ay. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones. Good job. You guys keep going over your notes. Keeping current will help you understand this, and practicing will always help you learn. So keep looking over the things that we're doing now and the things that we've done in the other units. Until our next class. Adiós y hasta luego. Ay, ay.